There's so much. There's so much to say. Like Greenland. A lot of people don't know shit about Greenland.
Do you?
No.
Yeah, right.
The Middle East has always, since fucking Hercules times, all this area has all just been in conflict nonstop and all mixed up. So it's like they're their own race. You know how South Park is always saying in the future there's going to be the orange people or whatever, or the slightly tanned people? That's basically already what it is in the Middle East.
That's correct. That's what I was talking about, Jerusalem and everything too.
Yeah.
And why the Jews, they have two different, not even just two, more than one demographic.
And then, of course, Asia was doing their own thing. Japan, China, and the Koreas, and they're fighting over the Koreas and stuff.
They're fucking no nonsense either. Let me tell you, they get straight to the point. They don't play the politics game.
Yeah, and like even into the 1900s. Well, I started thinking, because hundreds of years ago they started saying we're going to colonize countries because it's our duty, because they're like savages basically, and it's our duty to make them not savages or whatever the fuck. And and then I started thinking, what the fuck do they consider a savage and what do they consider civil?
Because like the fucking Dark Ages, like the torture devices they had, that's fucking savage. No, and when you hear about, there's a different, what kind of crime do you hear white people doing? It's always crazy ass shit. Like when you think of a crazy white guy, you think of someone who's going to turn you into a lampshade while you're alive, while like fucking your skull, Like white people are fucking crazy. So the fact that when they say savages, it's like people who are basically way more civil than them. They're just like, oh, they're not smart enough to be violent. That's exactly what it is.
I was thinking maybe in terms of like their wars. But,
what do you mean? Whose wars? Non-whites?
Like the way any civilization conducts war compared to white people conducting war.
Okay.
But still, when you looked at it, war was war. And they're all humanity savages once war happens.
Because we're all animals. That's like kind of my point.
And then that's also what I read about. Because I didn't know shit about World War One.
Not me either, not really.
And then so I have been reading about it, but one of the things that like fucking popped out to me was when they started bringing some of the people from Africa into Europe to fight for them, fight for the different factions. And so it was like fucking Africans fighting Africans sometimes, but it was supposed to be like French versus German or whatever the fuck. Anyways, a lot of times they did it because, money, food, hopefully a home, something. But once they were brought into Europe and fighting all these white people, they're like, white people aren't any special than us. They die just like we die, and they get hurt and cry for their mother just like, we did, or whatever, you know what I'm saying? And so it like takes war sometimes to like understand how human we all are still. Just also recently looking, because the maps change, the country lines change, but just what it's at now and what we finally arrived at, and then this is just what all the war has been at, just this line of countries: Egypt, Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, Iran.
Well,
they want to go to Iran and
that's
Afghanistan.
Where like people are from, is this area. Like humans in general were mostly from this area.
But we were going to war, supposedly, and 9/11. It was started Afghanistan, and then we're like, okay, and we'll also go to Iraq. And of course, they still want to go to Iran, but Saudi Arabia is our friends. And then Yemen, that's where Osama bin Laden was hiding. Supposedly, there's a lot of people that say, the U.S. government pretty much held him up in there, and Bush could have went after him, but he didn't. And then Obama, ended up killing him. That's where he was.
Yeah, it was kind of weird that almost instantly he went after him and just found him like it was no big deal. Not suspicious.
I feel Russia is like China in terms of there's such a giant area and they're trying so hard to bring different groups and say we're all one thing. We're all Chinese, we're all Russian, but they are very different and they can't fully agree on the same thing.
Well, I mean, that's the same as us.
Yeah, but
When you're a bigger place, it's just how it's going to be. Then,
but the difference with that is that they were like, they believe we've been here since hundreds and hundreds of years, and everybody in the U.S. is like, let's come to America. And then it's like first, second generation. We're still pretty all new.
yeah,
That's the main difference.
we need to change things like every 50 years, I'd say. We have a
Okay.
new generation entering a workforce.
I feel
And-
like there's been a big difference every century, whether they liked it or not, you know, culturally, socially.
The first black woman to ever be desegregated into a white school is only in her 60s right now. And she's still alive.
Yeah. That's why I'm saying every century, every 100 years, not every 50 years.
No, it's got to be every 50.
Well, 100 years is the there's nothing we can do about it. It's going to happen regardless. But 50 years is the let's push for it. Let's shoot for it.
Yeah. But, you know, people from the Depression, that's the difference between baby boomers and people and, like, their parents. People from the
Dust
Depression.
stormers or whatever the hell they're called.
Huh?
Or dust.
Or is that what they're called? Dust bowlers?
I think so.
I thought that was 1800s.
I don't remember.
But anyway, the Depression children.
Right.
Because, like, the way that they lived was so abysmal and things just were the way they were. Like, if, like, Eric's grandma, she's, like, 94. But she was just so go with the flow. Like, honestly, if, like...
Silent generation.
Silent? Damn.
That's fucking creepy.
That is creepy. Anyway, so the silent generation, they're very, very go with the flow. Like, they are honestly some of the most progressive people. And I don't mean even, like, actually, like, what they believe in. It's just, like, they can meet someone who has a polar opposite view of them, and they will be able to be kind and sit there and have a conversation with them, because back then, that's just what you did. There was nothing better. And then you have the baby boomers who had this infinitely better life than their parents did, and their parents wanted them to have that life, so they, like, spoiled the shit out of them, and shit was easy for them. And I remember Eric's grandma specifically said this once. I was sitting on the couch, Eric wasn't even there, and she was just like, you know what I think of the baby boomers? Because there was this, like, segment on the TV about millennials killing this, blah blah blah, and I was like, what? And I'm, like, sitting here ready for her to, like, defend them, and she was just like, I think they're spoiled. And I'd never heard anyone say that. And I was just like, go on. And this is what she explained to me. And she's just like, we wanted them to have a good life. We wanted them to have things we didn't. And in the process, she's like, you know, it really fed their egos. And, you know, we have the product of that now in our economy and in our world politics. And I was like, shit, Grandma, keep going. And, but really, I think that if we do that 50-year thing, it will force people to be flexible, because it's like, that's just how it's going to be. To just like how, like, the Depression people took it. It's like, especially when you have a new generation coming in and there's more of them and they're going to be more prominent, you're going to have to, like, especially when you're in a community, you have to fit in. Like, you don't have to 100% not be yourself, but it's like, you can still have your views, but accept that there's going to be these new weird views. That's it. You're just going to have to accept it. And we have to live together. We have to work together. And so if you update these things every 50 years, or even 75, but, like, the Constitution's how old? That's my point, is, like, there's no fucking reason to be abiding by that. Like, our societies are different. Our politics are different. We have to update.
I think we should keep duels. Pistols at dawn.
Okay.
For politicians.
But, no.
Specifically for politicians.
I could be okay with that. They have to, like, sign a contract to be like, you can't go after my family and you can't get mad after.